I guess in some ways, I thought of how often I had been over the course of my career disappointed in people, but at the end of the day recognized that they were simply yielding to the culture. So whether this was at a win at any cost culture, which is largely how I framed it, in Washington, I've got to be reelected, or in New York, I've got to get that last dollar of profit. It just simply was one that had disappointed me, meaning the culture and the yielding to that culture. And then I saw people that escaped from the culture, and those of course, became my heroes.
Yeah. It's a pretty powerful thing, that culture, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's immensely powerful. And I think we don't understand its power because we just go through our daily lives. I mean, I recite in words, of course, Dana Gioia's poem, The Downhill Slope, and how, we sort of walk along, and before long we're on that downhill slope, and then we get someplace and we look back and we wonder how we got there. You and I have spent much of our adult lives in media, and we watched media become more coarse over time, and we watched the more recent rapid evolution of reality TV. And essentially, Trump is a reality TV character who previously shaped through a series of marketing techniques his name as a brand. And he unrelentingly told us through, again, a series of marketing techniques how successful the brand was, how powerful the brand was, and the brand was, after all, him. So he comes along at a time when the public is sour. I don't mean all the public is sour, but much of the public is sour. And he sells himself, which of course he'd been doing for decades, wraps it up in a let's make America great again frame, somewhat like Obama's Yes We Can. And a fair number of people buy it. Now we'll see how far it goes, but it clearly is politics is marketing. We live in a representative government, and so to the extent we are not actively informed, actively engaged, to some degree we get what the culture gives us, and that's, I'm afraid, what Trump is. Deep knowledge tends to be what informs a healthy culture. And to the extent that we deal in a world of shallow knowledge, we are simply not going to, as a culture, thrive and be healthy as we would, of course, hope. I mean, I grew up, when Sunday was informing Monday, not just a retreat from Monday. And I think today Sunday is more of a retreat from Monday as opposed to informing Monday. And so I really regret that the Judeo-Christian ethic, value structure has receded and receded and receded. And I frankly don't know how to create its renewal. Certainly, there are religious organizations that attempt to renew it in the so-called sense of the Christian right that do not renew it. They tend to be angry and often hypocritical. So I guess I'm left often puzzled by the cultural renewal that I believe we need and how that might end up evolving. I'm gonna go back to my comment about shallowness. It seems to me that all Christians, not Catholics, are now called evangelicals, and all Republicans who are not for Trump are now called the establishment. And indeed, there is some nuance underlying both the word evangelical and the word Republican. And so again, I know what the dictionary definition of evangelical is, and I would suggest to you that not all evangelicals that are not all Christians that are called evangelicals are in fact evangelicals, and that all Christians who should act in the sense of Jesus's love, do not act that way. So, to the extent we renew the culture, we will renew it through better education and through better examples and through better leadership. Now that's where leadership then begins to shape the culture, not simply react to the culture. And so I make the point in this, in my book, that Candy Leitner, who lost her daughter to a drunk driver, formed Mothers Against Drunk Driving, otherwise known as MAD, and pushed back. And now all 50 states have a much lower threshold for who is or isn't intoxicated, and much greater penalties if you end up driving while intoxicated. And if we looked at the LGBT movement, we will see a dramatic change in the culture. Quickly, by the way, quickly. Mm-hmm. So the culture can be changed, but it's got to be concerted, it's got to be intentional, and it's got to have depth. It's sort of hard to know whether we are at a moment when the Republic is in some sort of irreversible decline, as some would argue, as our founders suggested might happen, or whether we can somehow regain the control, by which I mean the cultural control, or the cultural momentum perhaps is a better word, and move our culture in a way that, you know, where representative democracy works better, and where our media, strives for some depth of coverage, and where our entertainment strives for something, that is at a higher plane than what has been occurring for the last several decades. So I don't know. I mean, the culture is dynamic. We have to have cultural changers who are willing to work within that dynamic culture. Yeah, and so let me suggest that when Eisenhower was elected, Trump couldn't have been elected. When Carter was elected, Trump couldn't have been elected. When Reagan was elected, Trump couldn't be elected. So clearly there have been changes that make Trump more acceptable today than he would have been earlier. Now, having said that, Trump generally is averaging about 30 to 35% of the vote, in the Republican primary. So it's not as if he's commanding a majority of the vote. And also Bernie Sanders is an interesting cultural and political and economic phenomenon. Let's not forget him. And then we should also not forget that I think the public figures have not done a good job in understanding the global economy, where each day we get up and we're competing against the Chinese or the Chileans or the Koreans or whoever. And that's just the nature of the economy today. And it in part is the economy that has been enabled by the networks that I was privileged to be enabling, back when we were moving from analog technology to digital technology. And so, I talk to a lot of young people, and I have children and grandchildren that face the economic, winds of today, and it's just quite different. And to the extent that people are I guess feel abused by the economy, that they can't hold a job or they can't increase their wages as they had anticipated, they can't pay their mortgages according to the amortization schedule that they signed up for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years ago, then they're looking for answers. And unfortunately, sometimes when people are looking for answers, they go the wrong place.
Anything else you want to make sure people know about the book?
Well, it's for sale.